Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Robo Papers. Today we are really happy to have Modi, one of the main authors from this paper called EgoHumanoid, Unlocking in the Wild Local Manipulation with Robot-Free Egocentric Demonstration. Thank you so much for making the time, Modi. Maybe you can share a little bit about yourself before you go through the slides.
Oh, yeah, glad to be here. Hello, Mike. Hello, Jeffrey. I'm Modi, a second-year PhD student at Shanghai Innovation Institute. Currently, my research mainly focuses on humanoid loco-manipulation with robot-free human data. Previously, I interned at AGIbot. I'm only focused on scaling by manual robot data set and investigate the data factors that affecting VRA pre-training.
Okay.
Maybe we can just begin.
Yeah, awesome.
Today's
Yep.
work.
Mm-hmm.
So the main motivation is that for humanoid local manipulation, so the most obvious pathway is to just do what we do in bimanual manipulation. So we can collect a large data set for bimanual manipulation. We just take the humanoid to homes, to stores, to outdoor scenes. However, it's really expensive and inefficient if we want to take a humanoid to outdoor scenes. So if we want to collect a large data set for humanoid manipulation pre-training, we need to take a humanoid to outdoor scenes. But it's really expensive and inefficient. I think Mike may be very familiar with that. You need to take the humanoid and also take a gantry. It's just inefficient. So that's why we want to use human data as an alternative. Yeah. So this slide is the motivation, the data bottleneck for humanoid local manipulation. For the robot data is expensive and operationally complex. So we can only collect humanoid data in laboratory environments. However, the good point of robot data is that there is no training deployment gap. If we train a model on robot data, we can just deploy it in the environment we collect data. And if we want to use human data it's low cost. The sensors are portable, and we can scale the data collection across diverse environments. We can just take it anywhere, to home, to a store, just collect data. And the main issue of human data is the human-robot embodiment gap. If we want to train the model on both human data and robot data, we need to bridge the embodiment gap between human and robot. And maybe we can first begin with the hardware we used for data collection. This is the hardware setup for human data. We use a Pico 4 Ultra VR headset and 5 Pico motion trackers. Pico provides really high quality whole body pose estimation of human. And except Pico, we also mount a X mini camera on the Pico to provide egocentric video.
I'm curious. So the reason why you added this additional ZS mini is just that I guess the camera that comes in Pico isn't fit for purpose. Maybe perhaps it's not looking down.
It's for visual alignment because we want to collect robot data with a Z camera, and we want to align the camera setting. If we use the Pico, could also capture egocentric camera. So the issue is that the camera on the Pico is fisheye, so it may be different from the camera we mount on the Unitary G1 robot. So we mount an additional camera on Pico 4 Ultra.
I see. But couldn't you do the opposite? Like, for example, just put a Pico onto the humanoid?
Yeah. It's also, but the Pico 4 Ultra is heavy. It's a little hard to mount it on the robot.
I see. So it's okay. I see. It's a better of two maybe not so great situations. So you either make the human wear another thing, or you make the robot wear the thing, right? So okay. So you decided to let the human wear the additional thing. Okay, fair enough. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And that's the hardware setup for human data collection. And for robot data, we also.
I have a question. Is this the same setup as Sonic?
Yeah. Sonic also use Pico 4 Ultra VS headset because it really provides high quality whole body pose estimation. And we use a similar teleoperation pipeline with Sonic. We use the Pico 4 Ultra to teleop Unitary G1 robot The difference is that we use a decoupled controller. The decoupled controller means that you control the upper body with the vector pose, and the lower body is controlled with discrete velocity control. We just send the command like moving forward, moving backward, turn left, turn right, or head adjustment for the robot. We use Pico for Ultra, and the difference between robot data collection and human data collection is that for teleoperation, we use Pico for Ultra with 2 Pico controllers instead of the Pico motion tracker, because we need to use the controller to send velocity command to the robot. And there is a SIM-Z camera mounted on the Unity G1 to capture egocentric video, and Pico for Ultra is just used for teleoperation. That's the hardware setup of our data collection. And here are some examples of the data collection process. We collect for tasks in laboratory environments, the robot data. For this work, we mainly focus on post-training stage. So we collect both human data and robot data for each specific task. Here is the examples of robot data collection. And for robot data collection, a person just wear a Pico headset and collect the same task for human data.
I'm curious to I guess ask at this point. I mean, clearly the humans look like they've been instructed to move like a robot.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Because
what's the rationale?
At the post-training stage, we want to align the action pattern, because we post-train a policy on both human data and the robot data. We want to keep the action pattern and the pace to be similar for both human data and the robot data. If we are using human data for pre-training, we don't need to do like this. Because during pre-training, we just want to learn some general knowledge from human data. But if we do post-training, we must make sure the data are aligned.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and the main gap between human data and robot data is visual gap and action gap. For the visual gap, maybe we can be back to this slide. The Unity G1 is only about 1.3 meters high, and the human collector is much higher than the Unity G1 robot. So the viewpoint will be very different between human and robot, and that's the main visual gap. Why this visual gap affects policy learning? We can see, maybe we can see the web. Take this pillow placement task as an example.
Mm-hmm.
We think the policy learning process is like a pattern recognition. For this task, the robot grasps a pillow and walks towards the bed. It stops and places the pillow on the bed. And we think how the policy learned this process, how to learn where the robot should stop. It really depends on the camera, the image, and there is a pattern. The visual pattern is that the robot usually stops when the bed takes up about the top half of the image. This is a really easy pattern to learn, and we can imagine.
No, I'm sorry. Super random point. I just realized that this was the paper that I saw on Twitter that has the very cool transition. I'm not sure, Michael. Yeah, I commented on it. So it's like there's a human walking. He changed to like something like a CGI effect. He changed to a humanoid. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, sorry. No, sorry. Yeah, it's off. But yeah, now I remember this.
Okay. Yeah. There is a visual pattern that the policy may learn from the robot data. However, if we collect human data, if the human just stop at the same place when he wants to place the pillow, because humans are much higher than robot, the visual pattern may be very different. So the bed will appear at a lower place in the image. So that's where the visual gap comes from. If we don't align this visual gap, we just train the policy on human data, and the policy may learn that it should stop when the bed appears at a lower place of the image. That's the issue during deployment. It may stop too late So we want to bridge this visual gap, meaning from the different height between human and the robot. And we do this through a reprojection, image reprojection. Is here for the human data. For human data, we first estimate the depth image of the egocentric camera, and we want to project this image to a lower viewpoint that is similar to in 3G1 robot, 1.3 meters high. So we first estimate the depth image of the camera, the egocentric image, and project the depth camera to the 3D space to get a point cloud, and reproject it to a lower viewpoint. The reprojected image may include some black areas in the camera because the viewpoint changes. So we also use a stable diffusion to imprinting the black areas in the image. So we can get for each human demonstration, we can get the lower viewpoint corresponding video. We use that for human data visual input.
So interesting. So basically you almost do like a 3D transform, lower the view, do some inpainting, as if the human is no longer 1.6 meter, it's more 1.3 meter.
Yeah. To keep the viewpoint space aligned. But it's not. There is no correspondence between each human frame and the robot frame. We just change the viewpoint space.
I see. But I mean, even for the humans, like you say, there's also a range of heights, right? Amongst your human collectives, some are 1.6, some 1.8. So how do you know? Like, do you actually need to know the exact height of the human, the particular human collector, and then you make the adjustment that way?
Yeah, we didn't do that in this work because we can also estimate the height of the camera through some algorithm. But we just align the overall viewpoint space to a similar height to around 1.3 meters.
I think so we are also trying to explore something along this line, but I think one of the problems that we have, I think also Michael brought it up, is that if you're thinking about like sort of like scaling this, right, where people wear this kind of glasses, and most of the time when they're doing tasks, they're not like a humanoid where the hands are always in view, correct? So sometimes I might have one hand, sometimes I might have no hand. How will you how will you guys address all this? I mean, obviously when you are collecting this demonstration now, you sort of like try to do as close as possible to what a humanoid looks like from egocentric view. But in a more realistic scenario, it's harder to do that. Like, is that something that that you guys see you work in this method?
We believe a good human data, we should keep their hands in their eye. If they can't see their hands, the data may be hard to learn some knowledge. So maybe even during data collection, we just have the data collector to keep their hands on the camera viewport.
Got it.
That's how we bridge the visual gap. And another gap is the robot gap, the robot action gap, because human data and robot data has different representation of action space. We want to co-train the policy on both human data and robot data. So we just choose an aligned action space to align the robot action and the human action. We didn't do any retargeting or something else. We just choose an action space that is shared between human data and robot data. And for the upper body, we use the Sigdorf delta net factor pose in TCP. It means if we want to move forward the robot hand, move forward for 10 centimeter, the action representation is the same between human data and robot data for the delta net factor pose action space. So we can, if we use this action representation, we can even replay a human action on the robot. We replay the human trajectory. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, Modi. So am I right to say that for the robot data collection, in fact, the tally operators is using these kind of commands already, like, or you're just translating?
Actually, no. For tally operation, we have a Pico controller. The Pico will estimate the pose of the controller.
Mm-hmm. I see.
We map this pose to the robot and effector pose.
Got it. Yeah. I suppose that one is a lot more straightforward. How about the human data again? How do you, is it some kind of IDM that you infer? Like, how do you go from the human data to those to those
for human data,
6
because we use Pico for Ultra and 5 Pico motion tracker. With this hardware setup, we can get a whole body pose like this. We have the whole body human skeleton. So we just use the rest pose of human as a corresponding corresponds to the robot impact pose.
Got it. I see.
So that's the upper body action representation for our human data and robot data. And for the lower body, because we use velocity control, we use discrete action representation. It's already shared the same action space between human and robot data. For robot data, we just get the control command from Pico for teleoperation. And for human data, we get this velocity commands from also from the whole body pose. We use the pelvis pose from the human data to get the velocity commands, like moving forward and turn left, turn right. So that's also a shared action space between human and robot data. And for an effect pose, we only use a binary open-close command. With this action space, we can already replace the human data on a robot. So the action space is already shared between human and robot. That's how we bridge the action gap between human and robot.
Why does the lower body need to do discrete control since you're already having the ground truth of the human pose from the Pico?
Yeah, because the human and the robot may work with a different pace. If we want to describe velocity commands, it's more aligned between human and the robot.
I see. So you have an even lower controller that takes in this discrete velocity and tries to hit the target pose, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. But will it not work with just the 6th end effector position? Because like, imagine if I thread the end effector forward, and then if my controller is good enough, my whole body controller is good enough, I can essentially move my body also to that same position.
You mean the 6th end effector?
Yeah. So I guess the way you're controlling the upper body is that where your hand goes, end effector goes, you're doing some from upper body, whole body control. Right? So you move towards that target pose. So why not do it for the entire body instead of just the upper body? Does that make sense?
If we use a whole body controller like Sonic, there is actually no line action representation between human and the robot. Because for the whole body, the human and the robot cannot really be aligned the action space.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, we must need a retargeting process for human and the robot. For a controller like Sonic, that's whole body controller. But we are also working on that. We think the action space couldn't really be aligned. But we can just use human data for pre-training. If we use it for pre-training, there is no need to totally align the action space. So yeah, that's the overall pipeline for the alignment process between human and robot data. And that's our experiment results. For our experiment setting, for a specific task, we collect both human data and the robot data. For robot data, we collect the robot data on laboratory environments. And for human data, we collect in the wild, in outdoor scenarios or home scenarios. And the red bar corresponds to the policy trained only on robot data, and the green bar is co-training, and we test the policy on both in-domain and generalization scenarios. In-domain means the place we collect human data, that's laboratory environments. And the generalization setting corresponds to where the human data is collected. This experiment setting is to verify whether if we want to deploy a robot in the wild in some outdoor scenarios, if we just collect human data there, is it enough for a policy to work there? And from the experiment result. Oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah.
Okay, from the experiment result, we found that human-robot co-training both the performance and generalization experiment setting. That means if we want to deploy a policy in outdoor scenarios, we can just collect some human data in the wild, and we only need robot data in laboratory environments to ground the data for that embodiment.
Yeah, Modi, I'm curious, like, can you comment, like, say, for example, pillow placement? When it's in domain, your robot only already had, sorry, I'm referring to the chart. Could you go back to the chart? So I'm just looking at that. So during in domain, robot only is already doing 60%, but just completely fail is like 0%, right? when it's go to a unseen. But then I'm quite curious. Like it's having said that the code training in fact improved 85% to 97.5%. I'm curious, like it's not just that, right? Toy transfer as well. Like it went from 61 to 71. In fact it does better in unseen setting. Is it just because that like it's just a statistical thing? Maybe not enough. Like in under academic settings, maybe it's
For this task, for pillow placement task, the generalization setting is totally different from the endowment setting. We use a real bed at the home scenario. We can see that. We can see here for robot data, we just we just collect it here. And for human data and also the evaluation setting, we take the robot to a real world scenario. And the scenario is totally different. So when we deploy the policy trained only with laboratory robot data, the robots even it don't work.
Got it. Yeah, I'm just curious that in fact the success rate improved in fact from domain to unseen setting.
The human.
Even for the code, what I mean is even for the code training. So if you go back to your slides. I find it interesting that, let's say for pillow placement, it went from 85% to 97.5%, and both are under code training. I think the same thing happened for toy transfer. So I just find that a bit interesting that like for certain tasks, in fact, somehow it does better than even for the code training. For in unseen setting.
I think for endowment setting, the boss is mainly from the maybe the position generalization. So we just collect more human data, so it's same more environment setup. And for generalization setting, for generalization setting, the pillow placement task. Actually, this is a really easy task for humanoid to do this. So if it could just learn some knowledge from the human data, it can do this task.
I see.
So from this experiment, we can find that the main benefit of human data is the diversity and the scale. We can easily collect a lot of data in many diverse scenarios for each specific class, which provides a policy with generalization to new things, to outdoor things.
Could you comment a little bit on what is the proportion when you do code training here? Like how, just in terms of, let's say, number of episodes or number of hours for the same task?
Yeah.
What is the mix?
Actually, we have an experiment for the scaling experiment.
Sorry.
Okay. For this experiment, we use 100 robot demonstration for each task, and we scale the number of demonstrations we use for human data. Each figure, there are 4 data points in each figure. It corresponds to different. The x-axis is the number of human demonstrations, but the number of robot episodes is the same. Both the 4 data points all use 100 episodes of robot data. And our performance shows scaling the performance scales with human data when we scale the human demonstrations. And the different color corresponds to the different sampling ratio between human and robot data. This sampling ratio is applied to each training batch. We keep the human-robot sampling ratio the same for each training batch. This experiment, actually, we want to find maybe a good sampling ratio for human-robot co-training, but actually there is no conclusion. The different sampling ratio, there may be different optimal sampling ratio for different tasks, but we found that for some manipulation-heavy tasks, for example, some process task, it may need more human data. It may need more robot data. Robot data contributes more to the manipulation-heavy task. And this last is there is error and failure analysis of the experiment. We found that with human-robot data co-training, the navigation is the learns better than manipulation. For each task, we split the task into some subtasks. Some tasks corresponding to manipulation or navigation, and we analyze the failure cases for each task. So we found that navigation is more easily transferred. I think it's because navigation corresponds to a higher prior for manipulation task. So it's better aligned between human and robot data, so it can easily be learned. Yeah, that's the main experiment results. We also ablate the visual alignment performance. Visual alignment part. The visual alignment also improves the performance from our ablation experiment. We also have a zero-shot deployment demo here. For this task, we just collect a lot of human data in diverse scenarios, in many outdoor scenarios, and deploy the policy on a place that's the policy totally unseen scenario for both human and robot data. And we believe that for even for a post-training stage, for a specific task, if we collect more diverse human data, it can get the generalization. It can generalize to new environments. Yeah, that's the main experiment results. We also summarize some human data. We didn't pre-train our policy on existing human data, open source human data set, because they don't have whole body pose.
Yeah.
The existing human data set mainly focus on upper body. Maybe the dexterous hand, like ego dex. However, they don't have whole body pose to coaching human data on humanoid robot. That's why we use Pico to collect human data ourselves. This work is I think it's an initial attempt of human robot data co-training for humanoid local manipulation. It's at the post-training stage, and it shows that human data works for humanoid local manipulation. So we can just collect more human data with whole body pose for pre-training humanoid policy. We also summarize some recent work using human and robot data for co-training. There are two axes. The x-axis is the data skill, and the y-axis is hardware. I think it's dexterity. And the community is using a larger and larger data set for pre-training to utilize the human data, because human data we can collect very diverse human data, and it's really scalable. So the future pathway for utilizing human data, I think, is do more dexterous manipulation task and scale up the data skill. That's also what we are doing now.
I have a question
Yes.
that is thought. So I've been seeing a lot of this egocentric work and also egocentric approach of scaling. But then one of the points that you mentioned here is more dexterous. I don't really see it being more dexterous though. Like it feels like even with more scaling of data, the kind of task is still pick and place. Like open, close, open, close. I don't see really pen spinning with extreme data scaling of egocentric. Do you think that there's something else that might be needed for that? Or do you think that it's just maybe we have not scaled enough of actual dexterous tasks?
Yeah. I think for dexterous task, there may be a bigger gap between human and robot data. For like dex hand, it may be not easy to learn the dexterous manipulation with dex hand, like ego skill. What ego skill did, they use human data. When they use human data for mid training, they use 50 hours of mid-training human data. They retarget the human hand post to the joint space of a dex hand, Sharpa. I think that means the dex manipulation, especially for some precise tasks, it may be hard to transfer this knowledge for fine-grained manipulation tasks. Human data provides more general knowledge, like how we reason what we should do to finish a task, like tiny apple, home. But for the fine-grained manipulation, it may be hard to learn. At this stage, we think some knowledge human data could provide is how to utilize its whole body to finish some task. Actually, we have a slide. Like if we want the robot to do like narrow space traversal, how should it control its body to do this? And like the long range reachability, it has to utilize its left hand to keep balance. These are some behaviors that we can learn from human data. But for some fine-grained tasks, it may be difficult to learn that from just human hand, because the human hand is really different for each human. And the retargeting will also constrain the data to a specific. It's not a general knowledge like how how the robot move.
So I guess is the conclusion here drastically scale up ego-human data collection?
Yeah, we believe if we scale up this process, we scale up human data, we can learn some general knowledge from human demonstrations from a large scale human data set. And for human knowledge manipulation, because it's really difficult to collect too much human knowledge data. Maybe 1,000 hours but for human data, we can easily collect 100,000 hours of data.
Yeah, but for those, I imagine like it will have to be. I imagine the human data in those cases to be at that scale really have to be in the wild where the humans move like a normal human natural fashion. I think it would be very difficult to get them to move like a robot. I understand that this is within this academic paper, that's a requirement, so that it's when you do co-training in the post-training phases, it's easier.
We also want to learn some natural behavior from human data. Actually, we have to do some experiments. We just let human collect as naturally as possible, but we found that some natural human behavior cannot be even be replied on a humanoid robot. Because of the hardware setup, the degrees of freedom of robots may not support that natural behavior. So when we collect human data, we also before each task, before each human data collection, we will imagine whether this action pattern could be transferred to a humanoid robot. If not, we may let the data collector to do tasks that's not that natural.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I think I was just say.
Maybe in the future we will have just a good humanoid robot that can do tasks like human naturally. I think natural human data could the nature behavior could be transferred to humanoid robots.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly on the x-axis, like in industry, they are talking about way more data now for human data. So
yeah.
So the scaling up naturally, the whole industry is really bulking up on that axis. Yeah, but I think like what Jaffe said, like the dexterous part is maybe it's a part that is still a bit unknown. How do you learn from human? Very hard to for very dexterous stuff like for example folding origami. I think it'd be non-trivial. I think tactile probably a big proponent as well. Very difficult to just learn just by egocentric video like the tactile information. It's very hard to infer. Probably need to wear some very good gloves.
Tactile is another problem. Because when we learn human data for human data collection, tactile is a really important information. But the tactile hardware is hard to share a tactile sensor between human and robot data. So it may be difficult to learn that prior information from human data.
Yeah.
Maybe we can also have a rest camera as an alternative.
I see. You mean a wrist camera either underneath above or underneath the wrist? Is that what we're talking about? Wrist camera?
Yeah. Wrist camera, we can mount it at this place to make sure that it can see the manipulated object.
Yeah, I suspect it will help a bit, but a lot of scenarios, let's say when you're holding onto some stuff, like your wrist camera will also completely be blocked by whatever object you're holding onto. So there's potentially even more occlusion, I guess. The other thing is also, I think that it's just ergonomically speaking, there'll be quite a lot of, let's say, dexterous tasks that you can't really do once you have something dangling on your wrist. It's just, I think that's the trade-off.
Yeah, tactile may be the best, but it's hard to, align.
Yeah, cool. Jeffrey, do you have any more questions?
I think maybe one of the things I was like looking, not looking for, but hopefully you can see in the future whereby someone could potentially just transfer this kind of egocentric view to like extreme motion. So like, for example, like, you always have like people who doing like extreme sports wearing like this kind of GoPro or like this kind of, glasses. And many times the hand pose are not actually being captured, but the hands and the body are actually moving, correct? So like there might be, I don't know, there might be ways to look into that. And I guess also like for you guys, you have the ground truth human pose using the picker. So I think that could also be, that could be interesting. And also Michael's data set, I think could actually potentially help with those. Yeah.
Yeah, but
No,
like
not
what
to
Modi
say
say, the
like,
teleop data set.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a lot of it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, because you have the ground truth pose, right? You have the real robot, so that's the most like the ground truth pose. Right?
It is true. Very, very different trade-off between these two. But certainly robot data is just impossible to really scale. At most you scale linearly, it's very costly. But it has no deployment training gap, I guess. It's just damn troublesome to collect. Yeah. Cool. Modi, maybe just to wrap things up here, usually, our last final question usually is like, are there any interesting paper you come across recently you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I think the most impressive, maybe a demo I have seen is from the Flexing. Flexing, a humanoid robot, also in G1. They use in G1 to do some tasks in their home. The robot can walk upstairs in their house, which is really impressive. I think it's my favorite demo.
Yeah, I think they did something about like sim to real gap or something. Is that the one you talk about? I think they scan the environment beforehand, if I'm not wrong, turn into some Gaussian splat, and then
yeah, that's
is
it.
that the one? Yeah.
There is also a paper called VLK from Guanyang.
Yeah. I think they are coming on soon.
They share a similar idea. Yeah.
Well, looking forward to get them on as well. But awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Modi. Thanks for sharing your work. Definitely looking forward to more work from you and the group.
Yeah, we're glad to be here. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, David.
Okay, well, see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.